I purchase faulty items on eBay for cheap, attempt to fix them and sell them on for a profit. Welcome your wonderful faces back to episode number 73 of the series Profit or Loss. We are not looking, we're in the green, right? £51.95 is positive, but it's not quite as positive as I'd like it to be. Let's see if we can turn it up today just a little bit, make enough profit to get us past that £100 mark. That would be amazing. What is hiding behind mystery box number 1 today? I paid a grand total of £10 for this Atari Flashback 7 classic games console. We got Frogger, we got Space Invaders, we got Centipede, and I really hope it's got HDMI. I haven't actually looked at this yet. I've cut the sellotape, but I have no idea about the condition or anything like that. Apparently, these controllers are wireless, which is pretty cool. And here we have the absolute monster. Comes with the manual as well. The stick seems to be working, as you can see, because it's flashing when I let go. Yeah, so that's decent. So we push it. Yeah. So they are registering, they are working. I don't know if they've got these here for like manual controllers. It does say left and right. So I guess there is an option for it to not be wireless. And on the front, we've just got a start, difficulty, and a select button as well. Doesn't really necessarily look great to me because of the fact it's been opened before. The issue that we have with this Atari Flashback is the fact that we don't get a display. Now, I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, yellow is going to be video and white is going to be audio. So unfortunately, there is no HDMI output on this thing. It is simply just this cable here. Could there be a break in the cable somewhere, or do we have something wrong with the PCB that somebody has probably evidently already checked out? So I'm gonna get this plugged in and set up, and then I will be back with you very shortly. So I've got this thing hooked up to an upscaler here. I just need to plug in the power, but we've got HDMI for the Elgato to hopefully pick up the game capture, and then we've got video and audio put into it. This device is in fact on. So if we go over to our game scene, it does say 720p in the top right, but it just says no signal. So I'm going to turn off the Atari and turn it back on, and still no signal. I'm going to try and change it to 1080p. That will reset it. 1080p, nothing. Okay, no signal. So we can in fact confirm that we don't get any output from this. So now I can open it up. Do you think this t-shirt looks good? Because I don't. That's why I've actually now got some JDT merch. So if you want to buy yourself a t-shirt or a hoodie, I'll leave a link down below in the description. This specific drop here is only on sale for this week and this week only. Thank you. It looks pretty self-explanatory to take apart. I think we just have 4 Phillips screws and then maybe this long one in here, which I can't really see, if I'm honest. No idea what to expect, but the fact that I'm assuming the mystery screw has been opened is upsetting. Doesn't seem like there's a screw in there. There is a screw, but it looks like it wasn't put back properly. So it's definitely been opened before. That's a really cool little PCB. A lot of plastic though, right? Look at the plastic to actual electronics ratio. Redonkulous. So we've got 4 little screws holding this in. Does that now just come out like that? Wow, look how easy and simple that is. Wire literally pops out here. That's screwed in as well. So just for the sake of it, we'll take this one out also. Is the one in the middle? Yeah. Then we've got the big old screw for the DC jack. That doesn't want to seem to come out, apparently. Well, I'm pretty sure we can work with what we have here anyway. Let's get a bit of a zoomy in. This is our video cable, and it just simply solders to the board. Let's go over to the microscope. So what do we have here? We got, this seems to be just like a little inductor, not even a cap. We got a bunch of caps around here, a few resistors. Chances are maybe that one of the resistors or something is blown, highly likely. But first things first, before we do anything like that, I need to make sure these solder connections are actually okay, because it looks very, very simple, doesn't it, this circuit? Doesn't really look complex enough to cause any major issues. I'm just seeing if any of this solder is cracked or dry, but it looks okay. And all of the actual wiring here, nothing looks split from what I can tell. I am just going to solder them though, because why not? I think it's going to be pretty much safe to say I don't even need flux here, realistically. I should just be able to do that. Same there. Same there. I'll just make sure they're not touching, because that's going to be ground, isn't it? I'm going to move those wires over. There we go, clearly not touching anything now. And all of them are definitely on. Some of that solder's gone through to the other side as well. Wicked. I would also like to make sure we have a continuous path going from A to B. Meter in continuity mode. So this is indeed going to be the white one. Yeah, that's fine. Pretty strong connection. And this is the yellow one. You should be able to hear, but that's also fine. You can just see top left. Now let's see if ground is on either one of those as well. I'm not sure it's ground. That's on the yellow one. Let's grab the white one, which again is, I think, audio. Seems to be okay. Okay, so nothing's connected to ground, which is good. Why not? Whilst I've just quickly added a bunch of solder, should we test again? Makes sense, right? Over to that game scene. That's 1080p, so let's go 720. Has that fixed it? 1080p didn't work. I feel like it's not going to work. 720, no signal, nothing at all, nothing at all. Okay, I was just moving it about, and and I saw this. These are the solder connections on the back, and these are the ones on the front. So yeah, so this is the power board. Maybe we're just not getting the correct amount of voltage here to power the output, essentially, which would explain why we're not getting a display. Again, potentially, I could be completely and utterly wrong. Soldering these back is going to be tricky, hey? And I don't have that much slack on here. Let's see if I can expose some of this wire, I guess. I actually think a quicker way of doing this would be to melt it, right? I think just maybe melting this plastic. Yeah, it definitely made sense to do it that way. We'll try and get majority of this plastic off now, I guess. Can't believe how strong this one is compared to all the others. Right, workbench a little bit messy, but that looks a lot better. A lot easier to work with, I guess. First things first, I want to just make sure this one is nicely strong and secure. And then we can work from that one. Seems good. I think the best thing to do here, like with any through-hole work, is to clear these out. It should be fairly easy, he says. We do have a few little wires stranded in there that will get out, no problem. Turn it around, just look at the back of the board. Get rid of these little bits of wire. There we go. Last but not least. Come on! Can't swab an IPA. Make my life that little bit easier. Now we can turn this around and hopefully put all of these cables, all these wires, sorry, back through. Is there an easier way of doing this? Of course there is. There's an easier way to do everything. Is it going to work? Hopefully. There we go. Every single one pushed through. Now I've just got to rotate the board without any of them coming out. Grab our soldering iron. Again, we shouldn't need flux here. Really. And just on each one, with that little bit of leaded solder. Just ensuring we got a decent connection between the pad on the board and the wire going through. This looks good. Nice and easy. There we go. Sweet, and they're not protruding too much, I don't think, where it's going to cause an issue. And that is now solid. We don't have to worry about any of those bridging. Right, let's give this another test, hey? Hopefully nothing explodes, all right? Because that's already a win. 3, 2, 1. I think we have the power light. Nothing. I'm pretty sure as well there's next to no load time on this. It should display pretty quick. So I think back to the drawing board. Might as well whilst we're here check the connections on the actual power board as well, just to make sure. I mean, they all look okay, right? I think let's measure continuity between this and the other board. Okay, so 1 and 2 are actually bridged. So I'll inspect that in a second. Number 3, all good. Not bridged with any others. 4, all good. Not bridged with any of the others. 5, all good. Not bridged with any of the others. Finally, 6, all good. Not bridged. So 1 and 2 are in fact bridged. Should they be is the question. This could be really hard to tell, hey? Because if I go here, look, we can hear that there is a continuous path between the two. I should probably do a visual inspection on the board, hey? And should have probably been a thing when I first started. We visually inspected around the video circuit here. But to be honest with you, we don't seem to have any other issues. Maybe a little bit of dried factory flux here. I will check and make sure as well that all of these solder joints are okay. That is just factory flux. Some bulk resistors here, but even this solder here might have gone a little bit dry. This cap looks a little bit worse for wear as well. Now, I know for a fact that this is obviously going to be ground here. So let's just measure a few of these caps and see if we have any issues. That's ground. That's fine. That's ground. That's 100 ohms. But, nonetheless, could be low impedance, could be all sorts. It seems to be fine. Do we have any shorts on these caps? No, that's fine. This is ground. Oh, sorry, that's ground. That's fine. Let's try some of the bigger caps. You're okay. This one. You're also okay. Now this goes to a blob chip, which I'm going to assume like the CPU is under here. We have another big cap here. Ground. We'll continue to check though, because if it is something as simple as like a short that's blocking that video out, that could be amazing. Caps over here. We can also just measure like this. Yeah, they seem to be absolutely fine. And I think that's about, we have one, we've done C6. What about over here? A few more caps. Right here. Oh, okay. Wait a minute. Wait, that's 6 ohms. 6 ohms going into this chip. 6 ohms, 6, 7 ohms. This could be, again, just low, very low impedance. What about that? Because that cap does look worse for wear. It also looks like somebody's tried to replace that cap, eh? What do we have? 0, 6. Yeah, so that, again, should be fine. 6 ohms going into that chip. I will be back in a sec once I've taken some more measurements. May have found our first culprit. So we have this little resistor here. I was just measuring. So we got our video output here. Goes through this little inductor. Now, L3, I'm assuming L is for the inductor, even though it looks like a little bit of a resistor here. And again, an inductor should just be a through, like a fuse, right? basically. And that's exactly what this is, 1 ohm, right? And then if we go through here down to here, so this is R8 by the looks of it, and it says 202. So I'm expecting 2,000 ohms here, right? 2,000 ohms. I get 74. So I'm going to replace this little resistor and see what happens. Now, I'm thinking 0402. Am I right, or are they a bit bigger? They're bigger. They're 0603, are they? Is it 0603? Yeah, it looks it, hey. At the right size, yeah, 202. There we go, 202. Now, realistically, I should just be able to get this off quite easy with the soldering line, to be honest. There we go. Right, let's get our new friend on. Hold it down there. Because that side's got solder on, the other side will lay flat. So I'm doing this one first. Popping it there. The solder that I use has a bit of flux in, so. Alright, I mean, it does look a little bit ugly. So I need to add flux. It's on, it'll work, but I know people will be unhappy. There it is. Alright, and hopefully we can all agree that that is absolutely fine. And now measure, do we get 2,000 ohms? It should just jump up and say 2K. 74? No, maybe it's meant to say that out of circuit. Okay. Oh, so it still says 74. So what's the resistance here to here? It should be 0, right? Yeah, the resistance here is 0. And then as soon as I go over to here, 74. Now, replacing this resistor does take us straight into, again, this little blob chip here. I've measured all the other resistors here on this path, and they all seem to be okay. So between ground and the white wire, we have nothing. If I go ground to the yellow wire, we've got 74 ohms, which is exactly what I get here. So are these bridged somewhere? Is that what's happening? Oh, wait, it was because it was plugged in. It was because the wire was plugged into the box. That's why I was getting 74 ohms. And now I'm getting nothing, as you can see on screen. So I wonder now, what reading do I get on this resistor now that I've taken it out? Do I get 2.2K? Well, yeah, 2K. All right, yeah, so I'm basically a moron. Oh, there is 2K between them. And there's 2K between there and there as well. Okay, all right. Now it looks like, again, the blob chip is usually where the CPU is. So that these lines here, these rails go over to this chip. And this is a spansion chip. Lord knows what that is. Some of these connections look dodgy. Hey, look. Some of these look dodgy. All right, in which case, let's just get them soldered. I can tell already they look a bit dodgy. We'll just simply run the iron over with plenty of flux. Let's put a little bit more on, tiny bit more. There it is. Wicked. Can we get this side as well? Be able to. Going to be a little bit tougher this side because of the angles I'm working with. All right, how's that? Make sure we got no bridges. Looks good to me, and they're a lot more solid now. Yeah, every single one a lot more solid. I didn't check this side originally, but again, no bridges, and they all look solid. Cool. Let's test. Pressing the on button in 3, 2, 1. Okay, red light. Nada. Absolutely nada. More time to diagnose. I'm actually wondering if I could just take this off. Because everything, again, it just seems to go straight into here. I imagine a good old 200 degrees will do it. I can confirm 200 degrees isn't really doing anything from what I can tell. I have to be super careful. This is 300 degrees Celsius, but this board is super thin. Super thin. This thing doesn't move. Okay, hold on. All right. We have progress. Wait, what? Oh, amazing. So I've just completely dispatched the chip. Oh my God. That was 300 degrees Celsius. All right. Okay. Well, lesson learned. Never mess with blob chips. I think that is definitely safe to say. Technically, I could just not bother putting this video live. That's not what we do here. Complete honesty and transparency, and maybe somebody out there has learnt probably not to do that as well. £10 down the hole. Let's move on to item number deuce. I paid a total of £50 for this Nintendo Switch console. Fault is simply that it just doesn't power on. Now, condition of this is pretty grimy, I'm going to be honest with you, but the reason I actually went ahead and purchased this is because it looks like the screws themselves don't seem to be stripped. Now, I've said this plenty times before, but somebody has ended up going inside the console, so I could be wrong. But if we head on over to the scope, you should be able to see what I mean. Can you see here? Look, they do look untouched. If you don't like cheese, I'd say look away, because Lord only knows what's it the previous owner has been munching on whilst playing this Switch. Now you can see there is just grime all up in that charging port as well. It looks like it's going to work, if I'm honest. The pins don't look out of place or anything like that, but it just looks dirty. So, Exhibit A, if we take some IPA, stick it in here quick, give it a nice clean. How much better does that look now? Not massively, if I'm honest. Let's take our thou ammeter, and this little device is going to tell me how much current this switch is taking. It will give us a rough idea as to what the issue actually is. So, do we get anything? We do. We get something. 0.08. 5 volts. Okay. Good stuff. Now, you might be thinking, Jay, what are you talking about? 5 volts. Why are you saying that's good stuff? Oh, take it out and put it back in. I think my charger might have even gone into protection mode, perhaps. Which is why now we have this issue. Oh, no. Maybe just a little bit dirty. Yeah, 5 volts, 0.08 amps. In my experience of fixing Nintendo Switches, 5 volts usually means M92T36, which could also equal simple fix, perhaps. Less of a chance that something is wrong with the APU, for example. So I'll get this down to bare basics, and then we'll see what the issue is. And hopefully, this Nintendo Switch can save our day. I'm going to be honest, these screws, when I'm taking them out, don't feel threaded in the slightest, and that makes me very happy. It has been worked on, and let me show you how I know. There is flux residue all down here by the port, so we'll take that under the scope in a second. Actually, let's do it now. All right, M92T36, yeah, look, just flux all around it, and then we come down here, flux, 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 flux. Okay, when I get down to the board, I'm a bit like, oh, the flux is gone. I've now realized I'm editing this, and I've now realized that was the IPA that I put in the port and then sprayed. So this should all make sense in a second. Doesn't really necessarily look like much else has been changed. It looks to be a little bit of solder missing on this cap just down here. Good news is that around the max IC it doesn't look like, again, there's any flux. Sounds silly, but I don't actually think anybody's been inside this console past here, because this had no thermal paste on it. It was very stuck down, almost from factory. So I feel like maybe they just changed the M92T36 chip with this all still in. I personally don't think there's actually anything wrong with the port other than it just being a little bit dirty. On the inside it looks fine. And now I can get a much better clean now I've got the board out. But structurally it looks good. Just a bit grubby. Now I'm looking at it. That's factory flux. Or is it? No, it can't be. It's not, is it? Now that I've got this board out, I can't really see any flux. That's so weird. In which case, let's see, we've got a short around M92T36. Meter in continuity mode. Here we go. Yeah, short here. Short on this cap. So, M92T36 off, and then we're going to give it a test. CPU cap, absolutely fine. Lovely jubbly. Let's get M92 off. Been a while since I've actually changed out an M92T36. Have we still got the skills to pay the bills? That's the question. Speed is indeed 450 degrees Celsius. Airflow speed is a nice, juicy 50%. We're just going to move that heat around and pretty much go straight in for the kill. Now, I personally like to use old M92T36 chips. And when I say old ones, I mean ones that are from other boards. And I will show you the reason why in a second once I can get this one off. So that one's off. Now, the solder around M92T36 isn't the issue here. So I'm just going to place a chip roughly in place, just there. Come off the heat. It's a little bit skew here, so let me drag it back in place. Okay, come off the heat. Let that dry a sec. Remove the tweezers. Come in with a little bit of fluxation to the nation. What's that on the end of it? A bit of plastic or something. Didn't invite you to the party. And I'm going to lower my airspeed now to about 30%, just to stop any unneeded flux going anywhere it shouldn't. It will, but just less so, I guess. And now I'm just going to float it in place. I've not put any leaded solder or anything like that, and we should get a nice good connection between the pads and this chip without really having to do much. There we go. Now I can see from this angle that it looks like all of those solder pads are absolutely fine. Does it look a little bit wonky? Perhaps. Is that going to affect it? Not in the slightest. But you can see, look, all of that solder has bound to that chip really, really well, because this is a used chip on a board that I have tested and ensured doesn't have any shorts, and it's now soldered on perfectly without having the faff of placing leaded solder to mix with the unleaded and all that jazz. Now, as always, a nice clean with a toothbrush, and just to get rid of any what looks to be fluxy marks, I think. Just go with a cotton swab, make sure we get what we can off, you know. And we also need to check if it's broken the indestructible fuse, which is here. I doubt that is the case, because M92 acts more of a fuse than what the actual fuse does. So again, just to show you that soldering. Yeah, lovely, look at that. All right, continuity mode with the multimeter. Do we have a continuous path through this fuse? Yes, we do. Now I'm going to see if I can get a better clean on this port now that I've got it out of the chassis. Now we can just get some of these marks off, the little grub marks we have here. Is this going to make a difference? Nope. But again, the OCD. Get that off. Now, multiple different ways we can test here. I've got a USB-C tester, an electronic one, which is really, really good. But I'm just going to use the ammeter simply. And what I want to see is probably 6 to 10 or something. So yeah, 6 to 9, and then drop down to 0. Perfect. And we get 15 volts now rather than the 5 volts that we initially had. So again, 15 volts, 0.09, drop down. There we go. Lovely. That is looking normal. So I'll put it back in the chassis and hopefully this will be an amazing quick win. Right, I've put it back together enough for initial testing. I haven't put the heatsink on the back or anything like that yet, so we just plug it in. Do we get something on screen, please? Yeah, that's really healthy. Yes, let's go. Okay, so this was as easy for me personally as it gets. I obviously need to make sure that I test it, so I'll put it all back together in the chassis, test the Joy-Cons, etc. But an M92 T36 swap is what technicians dream of when there is a faulty Nintendo Switch involved. Everything seems to be okay except for the fact this Joy-Con doesn't work. Oh, wait a minute. No, it's console battery low. Yeah, it's just not happening. I've checked on the actual FPC connector down here and it's all plugged in as it should be. So I think I'm going to have to replace this rail. Let me double check. And we're back. And I've changed out this rail 3 times now. This rail isn't that great, but I know that it works. And still nothing, just not connecting. Okay, interesting. Replacing the Joy-Con rail didn't do anything. And I've skipped a few steps ahead. And I've measured around here and I seem to be getting some weird readings compared to a donor board that I have here. As far as I'm aware, and I guess it would kind of make sense, I think this chip has something to do with the Joy-Con rail that we have. It's literally the other side of that. And these readings differentiate from this one right here. So I am going to swap them and see if that resolves the issue. And hopefully I don't put this on the wrong way. Right, let's test. I changed that connector over and all was absolutely fine. I tested it, put it back in the chassis, and it stopped working again. I was like, what? When I tested it outside the chassis, no issues. As soon as I put it in, issues. So now look at this, right? If I go to turn the switch on, no, it's not turning on. Disconnect the battery. Okay, now it turns on. Touch is working, etc. Could I put this on? Now it works. What? Okay, now it works, but it's very temperamental. So put it back in. And it's not working. Move that around, it does. Okay. This joystick is fine, by the way. I've also tested this on another Nintendo Switch. Also, confirmation for the rail itself is also okay. No issues. But I don't think our issue is the Joy-Con or the rail in this scenario, because look what happens if I just push down on the connector just here. Ready? That's all I'm going to do. Push down here. Turns off. Shouldn't be doing that for obvious reasons, but it just restarts. So I think our actual issue is potentially with the connector or the backlight. I'm going to have to do it again. So this is on the actual connector, so not the backlight. And look. Okay, I'm going to disconnect it and stop doing that. Okay, so ignore the little bit of burnt plastic here. That's just after I've done the work on the back. All of these pins seem to be, as far as I'm aware, oh, maybe a little bit loose here, you know. Just a tiny bit loose. And that could be causing the issue because as soon as I put a little bit of pressure on this, it's then connecting these two joints and that's what's causing the short and causing the switch to turn off / restart. Let me just put some solder here, which saved me changing out the whole connector, and just a tiny bit of solder on the end of the iron. Might need to just move that over to the actual pads. You know what, I actually need to use a bigger tip like this one. I'm not convinced that's a good job. I don't think it is. So I'm actually just going to try and add solder here. Oh dear, that's a lot. Okay. I also think, unfortunately, I'm going to have to add a bit more flux and just clean it out thoroughly. Bit skew whiff, but do we have solid connection now? Yes, we do. Okay. Has that made a difference? Not going to show you, again, because I don't want to brick the device, but it's still happening. When I touch it, it turns off. So I'm going to take the connector off, see if that works. Okay, moment of truth. I haven't tested this yet. I've taken the connector off, as you can see from the back. Does it it still turns off just by touching it a little bit. Okay, now I've got this. What's happening? Could that be an issue with the backlight, perhaps? I mean, yeah, okay, so I'm pushing down on it now and it's not doing the thing. It's definitely not the screen part, but it wouldn't make sense that the backlight would be portraying this colour, because all it's responsible for doing is shining a light through, right? Very confused right now. Ignore the rip trace up here for a second. I'll tell you about that in a second. And that one and that one. But if we just focus on the backlight connector, look, I mean, it seems to be clean. So I don't think it's the actual backlight connector itself either. And I'm lucky enough, I think that it still turns on after a restart, but let's push down again. Now it's fine. Like, no issues at all. Me pushing quite hard as well. Okay, so whilst I'm here, obviously, this is the current issue that I'm facing. 3 rip pads. 1, 2, 3. When I took the connector off, I think there was a tiny little struggle, and it's ripped these 3 pads. Happens to the best of us. Acknowledge it and fix it. Get some good practice in as well. Now these ones are indeed tiny, so I'm going to go from the resistor here and from both of these pads that we have. Bit of flux there. We're going to tin our locations quickly, including the old pads actually, just whilst I'm here. There we go. I'll follow one of my basic rules, and that is not to get flux in the connector. This is the backlight one. I have failed. Okay, I'm thinking this wire. Yeah, I think it's a good shout. Again, tiny diddly teeny bit of flux just over here. Go with this one first. Here we go. Let's just tin this bit of wire as well. Exactly the same story for up here and up here. Now this is all going to need a clean. It's going to get a little bit awkward. These are all going to fall out of place. Do you know what? Not too bad actually. Okay, 1, 2, 3. All traces ready to go. Again, a tiny bit of flux here. Going to have to be super careful not to knock these traces when I put this down. Hey, do you know what? I think I'm going to leave it like that for the time being and then just going for the reflow. So this board is currently in, like, I want to say mid-air. It's in one of my Hako Omni vices. So I'm now just going to reflow this and hopefully it sits in place. If not, we'll get it sorted. 450 degrees Celsius, airflow speed 50% heat from the back of the board. It's not going to work. So, I'm going to try and rectify my mistake here. I think what I should have done is put conformal coating on. Simple M92 T36, he said.
So this was as easy, for me personally, as it gets.
If only that Joy-Con was working, it would be an easy job. I'm just going to try and put a little bit more solder on here as well, because it looks a little bit dry. And these things will happen, but they just make that victory even sweeter. Right, let's try this up. But I need to put that in place and make sure I ain't going to move. There we go. Here we go. Ready for the reflow. Everything looking good. Flux is on. Solder's on. Probably, yeah, about there. Probably needs to go that way a little bit. Can maneuver it. Here we go. It's happening. Too much. Oh, Lord above. It's not happening. I think that's it. I may need to go over the pins, but in terms of placement, I think that's going to be our best bet. I can't push down on it. I can't push down on this connector because it's so on the edge of the board. I've got nowhere to put my wrists. Plus the fact we've obviously got the wires which are going to be pushing up a little bit, making it a little bit uneven, especially this one over here. That's solid. That's moving. May need a little bit of a touch, but I think it's also on. Solid. I think this one needs a little bit of a touch up. And then what about this side? This is the important one. Because that one we have on the end. That looks good. That one doesn't. I don't know if that's connected or not. This one right here. These ones all look okay. Yeah, you can see it's not perfectly flat. I think that's why that middle one is potentially struggling. The thing is, touching that with the iron is going to be horrific. Oh, the absolute drama of this. Honestly. Okay, I think that's enough. I think that's enough. How does it look? Yeah, we got it. Oh, okay, good. Wow. All right. Yeah, we got it. And I wonder if it did do a better job this side as well. I think it did, you know. Let's see if I can check it. I'm pretty sure it was this one, which is in line with the cap. I think that one still needs a little bit of a solder. You're solid. You move with the wire. You're now solid. And you don't move. Good. Right. Cleaning time. I think that has had a suffice clean. Time for an agonizing, stressful test. Now, for whatever reason, I go to turn the console on to test, and I'm getting an M92 T36 error. I'm going to give that a change, and if it doesn't work, I'm going to have a wrestling match with this Nintendo Switch. Okay, Motor Truth. I've changed that M92 T36. What's it going to do? Is it at least just going to turn on? Please. Yeah, okay, fine. Right. Now, she goes to the home screen. I've not got digitizer on or anything. I just need this controller to work and recognize, okay? Please. Okay. I could cry. I could cry. This one, I haven't attached the rail yet. But this one, yeah. And look, if I wibble and wobble it, it's not disconnecting because, like I said, it was that pressure on the back. So it's working. I should put a little bit of pressure on the back. Yeah, that is fine. Oh my God, I'm so happy. Battery's low. Okay, let me get it back together and I'll give it a full test. I cannot believe it. It keeps doing it. I'm trying to turn it on no matter what I try now. Look, I've even gone as far to put the back on. It just keeps popping up with this error, and it's a second M92 T36 chip. I've spent quite a bit of time and effort on this now, and I'm done with it, if I'm honest. If I get it working, I'm always going to be super paranoid anyway that that message is going to pop up. Just doesn't make sense how out of the chassis it works, and when I put it in, it doesn't. Could it also maybe be just as well the battery or the game card slot reader? Yeah, it could. But I spent a lot of time on this now, and I have to move on. And that sucks, but again, the game is the game. Let's head on over to Sally's spectacular spreadsheet to work out our loss, which won't take much. I am in fact minus 60, just straight up minus £60 for this episode. Unfortunately, that puts us back in the red of minus £8 and 5 pence. I can use the chassis from this Nintendo Switch, and obviously I have a lot of donor parts, so it's not the be all and end all. Again, apologies, I wasn't able to fix anything, but we got some good practice and learned that we don't mess with blob chips. Thank you very much for watching this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, I'll leave last week's episode up here. Have a great rest of your week, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.